As I suspected, 32 flavors.
Try the sauce. I'm soaked in it.
What?
How's it going, everyone? Good morning, good afternoon, maybe even good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to our Bonded by Metal 1988 edition. If time allows down the line, this may be the first of a part series because we have obviously limited time, but we're going to make the best with the limited time because there's so much good music, especially in the metal genre, whether it's thrash, death, traditional heavy metal, black metal. So much came out in the year 1988, and God, I was one that year. So for me to be obsessed with this year and everything that came with it is absolutely crazy and awesome, by the way. So I'm ready to talk some metal. I got a few of the boys with me backstage too. And before we get going, Isaiah Matthews, this totally remind me of Death Godfathers to Death Metal. Dude, how's it going, Isaiah? Nice to see you here. Pat S. Hey, Pat S. Good morning, good afternoon to you, sir. All right, bring it on board, Mr. Impuritus. What's up, dude? Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, is he alive there?
Yeah, no, I'm here. What's going on, man?
Just a regular Sunday morning, afternoon. Ready to talk some heavy tunes. This is going to be awesome to talk about because, dude, this was tough for you and I to pick a year to do this. This was very tough. We might have to do a few episodes on this.
Yeah,
just on this year alone.
I know. I was looking at when I first said it, I was like, oh yeah, let's do 88. There's so many good albums. And I went back and looked. I was like, oh, there's so many good albums. This is
No, it's insane, man.
A couple of my personal favorites too.
Ooh, some personal favorites. Awesome. Well, I look forward to hearing what your favorites are. And I'm going to bring in our other gentleman here, Mr. Pope Metallicus. What's up, dude?
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me on.
No, my pleasure. It's about time we finally got to link up, and the fact that it happened all on impulse is better.
Yeah, right? When we actually plan something, it never works out, but when we do shit last minute, it just comes together.
Yeah, that seems to be how it goes.
It really do be like that. It really do. So, oh man, I'm just trying to figure out how do I start this, because this is a momentous year. You had thrash metal hitting its stride. Obviously you had Slayer putting out there are a few years past Rain and Blood. Metallica had already put out Master of Puppets. Anthrax had put out Among the Living in 87. You had already had Maiden already release Power Slave and Somewhere in Time, and this is the year they put out Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. And Judas Priest released Ram It Down, which was the precursor to Painkiller, and also, if I remember correctly, the rebound after Turbo.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's just wow. There's I know you got a lot of bands who are still in their early formation. You had Death putting out Leprosy because they had just put out Scream Bloody Gore. Now they're putting out Leprosy. This is so you can see. So this year was a year for bands in the prime continuing their stride, and then you have a few bands who are starting to get ready to come up in the world and start to make a mark. And one of them, too, happens to be a guy who kind of used to be a little bit of a misfit, a little bit of a misfit, Mr. Glenn Danzig from the Danzig Soul-Titled album, which obviously we all know the hit song Mother.
Oddly enough, that became a hit years after the album came out.
Yeah, is that funny how that happened? Yet the album came out in 88, and the album came out, and there's a lot of great tunes on it, though. That's the beauty of it. If it's funny because that album, people know it just for Mother. They know it just for Mother. And
there's some other great tracks on that album too. It's I've never been the world's biggest Danzig fan, but that album even I can get behind.
No,
there's some great tracks on there.
Let's take a look at the sucker. So obviously, this page right here, we got Twist of Kane, which obviously is a great song. Not of This World, She Rides, Soul on Fire, Am I Demon, Mother, Possession, End of Time, Evil Thing. I think Evil Thing would probably be my favorite song on here on this one. And I didn't actually not know this, but apparently our boy Papa Hetfield had uncredited background vocals on Twist of Kane. You know, I can actually now that I can actually kind of hear it now. Now that I know exactly which parts it comes in, and I could see that. I can really see that.
Oh, it was produced by Rick Rubin too.
Yes, of course was. I think this was on because everything had that like that black like the CDs all had that black thing on Deaf American because Slayer was on there too at the time, and this was the year they put out South of Heaven, and that was another huge album. Was huge because they had already put out the Transcending Rain and Blood in '86. So it was just like, and at the time, everyone was just like, "Holy crap, that's like the standard for thrash and speed metal."
Yeah,
and
well,
then all of a sudden,
pretty much it was like a constant one-upsmanship between Metallica, Megadeth, and Slayer. Like, you know, Metallica comes out with Kill 'Em All in '83, freaking, and then Megadeth comes out with their first like the next year, along with Slayer, and then like it's just constantly leapfrogging each other of like the new gold standard for thrash metal. Pretty much from then until 1990.
Yeah.
No, dude, South of Heaven, like when you hear about it, you're like, holy crap. It throws you off because you have that opening track and it's our
that's why this is probably my favorite Slayer album, is because it doesn't have that, you know, just quick fast punch in the face. It like really leads you in and like kind of creeps you out before it gets into that heavy riff.
Yes. And speaking of said images, we gotta show off this lovely cover this thing, because you had South of Heaven, you had Mandatory Suicide, which is obviously this is when you start to hear more of the war-based lyrics too. It was cool when they delved into history, because at the bar you didn't just have them talking about death and evil. It was like they were, and I think that was more of the Tom Araya side. He wanted to expand upon that because obviously Kerry had his set lyrics, you know, with death, Satan, but Tom he liked to expand upon, like, you know, killers like Ed Gein. Obviously that was later on, but he is definitely more expansive. Hanneman too. Hanneman loved his war-based lyrics. I think he actually wrote the lyrics for War Ensemble, but this one has Ghosts of War, Mandatory Suicide, Spill the Blood. We even get a Judas Priest cover with Dissident Aggressor.
Yeah, that is
the second time they covered Priest,
and I hate both of them.
That's fair.
I really dislike this. Like, honestly, the funny thing is Dissident Aggressor in '77 may have actually created thrash metal, because it has a lot of the sonic hallmarks of it. And it's very, very fast and aggressive. It's like kind of a mix of speed and thrash. And I think they did it a lot better than these guys did. Then again, I'm a lifelong Priest fan, so
no, that's fair. And we also have, once again, this is the second album in a trend where between Rain and Blood, South of Heaven, Seasons in the Abyss, we had Larry Carroll do the art. And this is a very, obviously, it's still, this cover is like one of those things. If you're a metalhead, you know that cover. It stands out. It's iconic, and
it's one of those things. If you're a metalhead, you can identify this album within 3 bars of it firing up South of Heaven.
Yeah,
it's like yes.
It's like when me and my buddy saw these guys in the '90s. It was them, Biohazard, and Machine Head all on tour.
Nice.
Nice. So I was Burn My Eyes Machine Head too, right after Rob came off of Violence, and Violence put out Eternal Nightmare this year.
And we were out doing whatever, and all of a sudden my buddy like head snaps towards the direction of the arena. I'm like, what? He's like, did you hear that? I'm like, yeah, they're playing music on the radio. He's at the stereo. He's like, no, we gotta go. And he was right, because next thing you know, they started leading into the Rain and Blood.
Nice.
I remember. So I think I first discovered this one when I was in my teenage years. Obviously I was obsessed with Rain and Blood. I couldn't stop listening. I didn't want to stop listening to it. It was just like, this is my obsession. And then all of a sudden I had heard people like, oh, dude, wait till you hear South of Heaven. That is the complete opposite. And it threw me off. But as I kept going back, but there's something about it, I'm like, all right, this is really weird, but I need to go back to this some more. And obviously it rewards you with repeat listens, because you really get to see Dave Lombardo show off what he can do on this album. He definitely shows off his chops more in this one, because in Rain and Blood, obviously he just does the work of speed, and that's what he's supposed to do. But this one, he gets to branch out a little bit, and it's wonderful to see. And we even have Tom Mariah kind of teetering on singing at bits. So this is like, dude, like what's that one? The Silent Scream. Oh my god, Silent Scream is so good, dude. Love Silent Scream. Live Undead, which is funny because they had the earlier Live Undead EP, or it was like a split, and now all of a sudden they have a song called Live Undead, but that's separate. I always like when bands were confusing like that. And well, we had an anonymous here, and I guess this is going to be the part where Anonymous for $5 says, hey, Nick on a Sunday afternoon. What a pleasant surprise. It is a pleasant surprise. And bonjour to you, Mr. Christian Delorme. How you doing? Shellback TJC, the Brahma Bull, the lovely Sherry. How are you all doing? Thank you for dropping by. Glad to see you guys. If I had to pick a favorite song from this, after all my repeated listens over the years, I probably am going to go with Spill the Blood or Mandatory Suicide. Where would you be on this one, Imperatus?
I'm with you on that one.
Oh,
I mean, this is also like, I want to say either the first or second Slayer album I heard growing up. And the first, whatever the one that it's not, was Rated Blood, and then followed up by Show No Mercy, which is actually my personal favorite.
Oh, Show No Mercy is great. I totally get where that comes from. See, I liked Show No Mercy, but I was more of a Hello 8s type of guy.
Yeah, that one's also good too.
Yeah, that title track was just like, dude, that it's all about that intro. And this one's filled with great intros too, of course. I mean, God, dude, the first time dating back to oh God, just memorable intro. Like, you can hum those riffs live, like it not just the lyrics you can sing like live, like, you know, when there's a crowd, people sing, but I could see people freaking humming the riffs to us live because they're just so stand out, and it transcends time. It really did. And you have not thought living in '88. I mean, I'm gonna say, how old were you in '88 when
12.
This came out? You were 12, so you were so you definitely knew about this stuff at the very least.
Oh yeah.
I'm in your boat, Nick. I was a year old, so
we
didn't know about any of this shit.
This is the beginning of discovering a lot of bands. Like within this year, 87, 88, 89, I started getting into Slayer, Suicidal Tendencies, King Diamond.
Started being really old enough to really like know what you're doing.
DRI.
Oh, DRI is good. But go on, Imperatus.
You know, so it was just like I said, it was the beginning of really getting into stuff that wasn't just like, up until that point, it was pretty much like Iron Maiden, Metallica, Anthrax, Motley Crue. And, you know, I just really started digging into, you know, something I felt was heavier.
And so when you heard this at the time, you're just thinking, how does this get more crazier or weirder or more extreme? So little did you know, you had not even, you know, reached the peak anywhere. You weren't even close, because there's stuff that was even wilder than what was going on here.
You are not wrong.
And boy, did I learn that in life. So okay, we'll transition on to another one, and I know you guys are gonna have a freak out, especially Imperatus is gonna have a freak out about this one, as he so rightfully should. Look at that beautiful art, by the way.
That album is so good.
Can never go wrong with King Diamond.
You can, just not in this era.
Yeah, I mean, that's 20 years in the future. We don't talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously we have this beautiful piece, but we also have for normies in the chat who aren't as aware of King Diamond, the best pop cultural reference I can give to you, for any of you who saw the movie Clerks 2, a specific song was in this movie. In the movie Clerks 2, that came from this particular album, that would be Welcome Home with Grandma. I'm a little scratchy in the voice, but I remember a lot of people actually got turned on to King Diamond because of Clerks 2. I mean, say what you will about Kevin Smith now, and that's very fair. I get it. But this song brought a lot of attention to King Diamond, and that's cool, man. That's awesome that they had that. and this piece is just, oh my god, it's such a favorite piece. I mean, if I had to get, I'm trying to think, maybe my favorite one song in here. I don't know if it'd be "Welcome Home" or "Bye Bye Missy." What about you, Pope? Where you stand on them?
I'm going with "Welcome Home" on this one, especially because that was my intro to King Diamond in general, and this album in particular.
Mhm.
I heard that freaking eerie wail in Clerks 2, and because that came out when we were in high school.
Oh, so you were one of them. There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah, and I was
Yeah.
like, ooh, that sounds evil. I need to listen to it. And then that got me into King Diamond as a whole. And you know what? Like you say, however we might feel about Kevin Smith now, he's responsible for making me listen to King Diamond, so he's not all bad.
No, he really was not. And I don't know who had to say in that, whether it was him or Jason Mewes, but somewhere, someone in company made a great decision because it took a lot of people to start paying attention because at that point, King Diamond wasn't. He's now starting to have a second surge now. People are starting to become aware of him again. And obviously, he's starting to play bigger venues again. But prior to that, he was, I guess you could say it wasn't fading because he never really stopped. But he's
He was
now
kind of it was kind of just stagnant. Like he was
he's
where he
just
was.
stagnant. He thank you. I couldn't have said any better. He just was where he was. He was getting by basically. And now he's having the second win. The only issue is he has yet to put out a new album on the second win. And I'm hoping maybe this will rejuvenate him to whenever an album comes out, it'll be like damn good because he's motivated.
There's certainly a whole list of artists from this era that are coming out with new material that's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And not only that, we have a whole new genre of music, the new wave of traditional heavy metal coming out.
Mhm. Oh, so many good bands too.
Like Enforcer, Ambush, Fortress. I just listened to that album.
Oh, don't spare the wicked, dude. It's so good.
That's going to be, I think, my next album review. Because I love talking about new bands that people haven't heard of yet. So I'll probably be doing that this week.
Oh, nice, dude. Okay, and
but no, like that. This whole period like needs more attention, I think.
And King Diamond was influential when he had an appearance in an anime.
Oh yeah.
Okay, you need to refresh me on what one that.
I just linked it in the private chat, an image from it. But there was an anime.
Oh my god, we're sharing that.
I don't recall the year it came out, but it was after this. It was an anime called Bastard.
Bastard,
and it was nothing but heavy metal
I've
references.
Heard of Bastard, yeah, I've heard. I've not watched it. I think it's supposed to be on Netflix soon.
Yeah, they're redoing it or something. God only knows what they're gonna do with it. So
all right, there you go, anime lovers. I know there's at least one or two anime lovers in the chat.
Like the character's name was literally Count Diamond.
Ooh. Tommy Cat, I'm not familiar with you in the chat, but nice to meet you. He says that new Fortress album is the greatest Alcatraz album never made. Ooh,
honestly, that's
a compliment. That's huge. That's huge.
But the way the vocals sound, you know who he reminds me a lot of is Bruce Dickinson.
I can see Dickinson. I can see that, and you got Fortress, you got Haunt, who's another good one. You have God, it's at the tip of my fingers now. I'm great. My brain is blanking out.
My favorite of the bunch is Ambush, who I just did.
Oh yeah, that's what I was meaning to mention. Ambush. Thank you.
I actually just did a review of their newest album, Infidel, which they haven't had a bad album yet.
Oh, hey, Alex James, there he is. Hail Nick in the panel in the chat. Fatal Portrait, Abigail, Venom, Conspiracy. Yeah, easy, man. Easy. No, all doing great. This is a wonderful period in time to have it. And you also had Andy Larocque on guitar on this album. You also had Mickey D on the drums before he was fully committed to Motorhead for the next quarter of a century of his life.
Yeah, I think this is the last album he was on with King Diamond for a while, at least anyway.
It was. Rudy in the chat. Hail, guys. Mel Normie here, but I'm listening in. Hey, dude, that's good. That means we can tell you about what's good that either you were aware of and need a reminder, or maybe you'll discover something that like, hey, that sounds cool, or that looks
it's kind
cool.
of funny
how
so many bands have periods of they can do no wrong and then they start falling off.
Yeah,
because after Conspiracy, he started falling off a little bit. It's the same thing like with Dark Throne. Like you had Blaze in the Northern Sky. Transylvanian Hunger, Under a Funeral Moon, and
Oh,
Panzerfaust.
Oh crap, Nick! It's Joe under my alternate hair metal YouTube has made this, but dude, this guy Joe here, this guy's the real deal. I gotta get him back on. I know who this is now. Joe, I gotta get you back on for a chat. He has a very killer website, Defenders of the Faith.
Okay.
Fuck yeah, man.
Smoking good website. And I'm not saying it's a show just because I'm friends with the guy, because he's also not afraid to disagree, but he's also very cool and kind about it. This guy knows his stuff. Don't mess around with this guy. He says, next one I'm joining for, dude, no worries, man. I had him on last summer, I think, and we had a one-on-one to just, promote his website a bit. Me, him, and my buddy Dustin, who's on my Toxic Tuesdays. Yeah, defendersofthefaith.com. I'm going to get a link to that and promote it on here for people. And this guy does interviews, he does reviews, he does retrospectives. Joe here, this man is the real deal. Oh, next one for sure. Okay, no, I'm going to get your link in the chat to promote for people. So Andy Larocque obviously killed it on this album, and this is preceding him joining Death when he did the Individual Thought Patterns album.
I keep forgetting he was on that album.
The thing is, he's one of those names where not everyone mentions it, but the people who know about it. And I know he did a solo on At the Gates of Slaughter of the Soul as well, which is a solo At the Gates admit that they still struggle with playing to this day.
That's one of the things I like about guys like Andy is that he's one of those dudes that just pops up in random places and you never expect him, and it's always welcome.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, oh, I know who you are. Mm-hmm. Well, we're in for a good time.
Kind of like Gene Hoglan in some cases.
Oh, big, mean Gene Hoglan. That dude. And that guy gets around. Seriously. I mean, he had him with Individual Thought Patterns. You had him with
He was in Testament for a while.
Testament. And he's done several albums with Testament. You also
wasn't he an Old Man's Child for a spell too?
I think he was. Okay, I found your link, Joe. I'm gonna promote this in the chat. Guys, check out my buddy Joe here. This is his page. And there he is. Thank you, brother. And yeah, Andy does not get enough recognition. One of the all-time great classical inspired players took the Blackmore Yingwei formula and upped it. He elevated, dude. He was skyrocketing.
And speaking of Yngwie, he had an album this year too.
Yes, he did. No,
one of his best too.
Let me get that one up. Go ahead and talk about it. I'll get that one.
Being Odyssey, probably his first real big one. And is it his first one? I don't think so. I think it's his second.
I'm not sure. I was never really a big Yngwie fan.
I mean, I'm not the world's biggest, but I do enjoy his guitar quite a bit. It's just ridiculous. And this is one of his better ones with Rising Force, Heaven Tonight, a whole bunch of good ones. Faster Than the Speed of Light's on this one.
Now, Joe says here his fourth.
It's his fourth. Oh, that's right. That's the beginning of this trilogy. I can never remember what order those albums come out in.
So when did you get into this one, and what made this one stand out for you? Then let's talk about it.
This one I actually got into because of Razorfist Metal Mythos on him.
Oh, did you?
Because I knew some of his later stuff, and then I listened to his Metal Mythos, and I looked back to the early stuff, and this period of him from like 88 to like 95 is really, really good for Yngwie fans.
Okay. What about favorite songs on this one?
That's a tough one. There's so many great ones on this, but I might go with Faster Than the Speed of Light because it's just ridiculous.
Okay,
it's just fast, over the top, and everything power metal should be.
I'll admit to not being as familiar with this one, so my knowledge on this is not as good. I've always obviously respect the guy's playing. I know what he can do. He's absolutely sick. So I do know that. That's obviously a normie based opinion. But man, maybe I should actually listen to Odyssey.
Oh yeah, this is definitely one of the more power metal of his albums. You got Riot in the Dungeon on this one. It's freaking. And Jolyn Turner's a great singer for this album, so I will put this one up in probably his top 5.
Okay. And Mr. Tommy Cat says Odyssey is my favorite Yngwie solo album. He and Jolyn Turner were a match made in heaven. This was my intro to Yngwie. Bought the CD from Disc Replay in 5th grade. Dude, what? You got that? Oh, dude, Disc Replay. Oh, man. I love Disc Replay. We don't have as many of those locations as we should.
No,
seriously.
There's none around me anymore. Like I miss going like Friday afternoon pretty much every week in high school. Me and the boys would go down to Tower Records in Burlington and just pick out an album we like the look of and then just go listen to it and then just talk about it. And I miss those days. It was freaking great.
Nah, dude, it's such a. I miss it so much. Like there's one store that's about an hour away from me called Rolling Stone Records, and they do have a pretty damn good metal selection. But obviously, I can't just go an hour plus away every day. Even though I'd like to. Maybe if I wasn't a dad, I probably would. Would.
Right. If we didn't have anywhere else to be, like that would just be like go hang out in the record store every now and again. That's what we do, basically.
Kind of what I did for a little while. I got a shop by me that is a metal music store.
Nice.
And
what was your store?
It was called Rock Fantasy. It was privately, it was a mom and pop shop. And at the time, Rob and Andy from Morpheus Descends were running their distro out of it. So I got a firsthand education in all sorts of music.
Oh, all right. Now, my place was before Rolling Stone. I used to go to a Tower Records that was in a town called Schaumburg. Schaumburg is the town that has the biggest mall in all of Illinois, titled Woodfield Mall.
Nice.
And Tower Records was not far from there. And I remember, from where I am, that's like, I'd say half hour, 40 minutes. And, when you're a teenager with your friends all packing the cars, you'd all be like, oh, let's go down to Tower Records. Let's get all our cool albums. Because, there's a lot of stuff we could get at Tower that you couldn't just get at Best Buy. Like, I couldn't just go to Best Buy and find this particular album, Leprosy from Death. I had to go to Tower Records, which I don't care. I don't regret that drive. Because, we'd all pitch in gas money. We'd all spend anywhere between 50 to 100, some of us $200 on albums. And for me, getting into Death, I started at a weirder point in time in my life. I started at Symbolic. And obviously, and that's a very different band compared to what they were. But then I would see a lot of guys speaking about, the leprosies, the spiritual healings, the scream bloody gores of the world. And I'm like, oh, I should look into it. And I'm like, holy crap, this is like super like raw sounding, like, and it was like almost like a completely different band. And obviously, in many ways, it was. Granted, it's always been Chuck Schuldner's band, but he didn't have guys like Andy LaRocque or Gene Hoglan or Paul Masvidal. This is the album where he had like Terry Butler, but even though Butler was credited but didn't play on the album, you had Rick Ross. He had Bill Andrews as well. And Bill Andrews was also in Massacre. Do you remember Massacre, Imperatus?
Yes, I do.
Man.
Their first album was killer, From Beyond.
Oh, dude, From Beyond. Dude, taking me back with that one. I remember hearing that. I think one of my buddies picked that up at Tower Records. And he was like, dude, look at this. I was like, bro. And I'm like, and I remember they didn't have a cheap price tag on. I'm like, just spend the money, look at that artwork, and just take it. Who cares? Just spend your money, man. We're here to go nuts with it. But Leprosy, dude, when I first heard that opening song, the title track, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Like, it's super, like, so much more straightforward. It almost threw me off because I was used to the super technicalness of Symbolic. I was just like, holy crap. And because they went more of like a progressive route later on, especially after they worked with guys like Paul and Sean from Cynic. This is more straight raw death metal that came more in line with like Morbid Angel, Cannibal Corpse, Obituary. They were just straight death metal. And of course, I love this beautiful piece by frickin' Andy. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm blanking on this shit. Help me, guys. Help me. How am I? Oh, Ed Repka. I cannot believe I forgot Ed Repka. What a legend. And he did a lot of pieces. And interestingly enough, he was not a huge metalhead. Metalheads just liked how he did art. And he just kept taking applications. So, Imperitus, what was your death story? Were you spiritual gore, leprosy?
Spiritual healing for me.
Spiritual healing. Okay. So where you stand then on leprosy then?
It's okay. It's a decent album. It's not one of my top death records, but it's definitely good.
Okay. All right. Mr. Pope, any thoughts on the leprosy?
I have actually never listened to death. I'm not really a death metal fan at all. So it's just something I've never really delved into. I keep getting introduced to it, but like everybody like keeps introducing me to the Cannibal Corpse, and it's just like not my band.
Okay.
Like,
death is nothing like Cannibal at all.
Okay. So maybe I'll start with them and see how I like it. Like it's the vocal style that really just turns me off. Like with that like real like growl, it's just like, man, like don't get me wrong, like some guys do it really well, but it's weird. It's like it's this weird hole in the middle, like because I like thrash metal and I love black metal. But if it's in the middle with that like lower howl, just like nope. I don't know why. It's just like this weird no man's land.
No, hey man, if that's how you feel, man, that is how you feel. Well, then we're gonna shift into a very comfortable piece here, and I see Cam's all over the Bonded by Blood lyrics here in the chat. Murder in the front rows, the crowd begins a bang your head against the stage. Bonded by blood. Oh my God, Paul Bailoff, what a freaking legend Paul Bailoff was. And that was, dude, that's when the crowds, I mean, maybe Imperius would maybe attest to this. I don't know how many of the shows you go to that, but the crowds at those shows were absolutely batshit crazy. People were probably actually banging their heads against the stage.
Wouldn't surprise me.
At that age, I wasn't hitting too many shows yet. Maybe a couple more years for that.
I mean, I saw Slayer probably on their farewell tour when they were actually playing with Amon Amarth. I was actually there to see Amon Amarth, but holy shit, when Slayer hit the stage, it got nuts, dude. Like the entire crowd was pretty much a giant circle pit for most of the show.
That's Slayer for you.
Yeah.
Dude, Angel of Death was just monstrous when that opening riff started. You could just like feel everything just tense up. And then as soon as the drums start going, everybody just fucking went nuts. It's just awesome.
Oh my God, Cam, you just missed it. We've talked for a few minutes on the King Diamond album, Them. I think that may have been the first one we started with. First or second one we started with was with Them. So we did cover that. And yes, I do love me some Merciful Fate as well. Maybe for another year we'll talk more about it, and maybe we'll talk about Merciful Fate. Maybe we'll have to do a Merciful Fate piece. I don't know. But we'll talk with something more in line of the comfort. Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. So not my favorite Iron Maiden album, but one that I still love. I still think it's a great album. And this is obviously where they were going all in on like the synths and stuff. And of course, it was the seventh album. Yet another wonderful piece of art by Derek Riggs. I mean, I think we'd all agree, even if we don't like the album, we love this piece of art. And Derek Riggs was such a perfect like artist for these guys. He really was. Any of you guys want to add to this?
Oh yeah, man. Like even the albums I don't like from Maiden, like some of their newer stuff, I still love the album art on.
Oh yeah.
Oh like, yeah.
Like it's still great. Like I think the only one I'm really not a fan of in terms of the art is probably either Dance of Death.
Oh yeah,
like that one's just bad. But everything else, like actually Maiden is the band that got me into heavy metal as a genre. So like
okay. Talk about your Maiden story. I came in later. I was in high school and somebody played Brave New World. And I immediately owned that album and about 3 other ones. And that they kind of started me on my metal journey, which the first album I ever actually bought with my own money also came out this year, but we'll talk about that later. I'll mention that when we get to it because I guarantee we will. Let me know in the private chat. We can segue into that one too. We can just segue into it. Alex James right here, Infinite Dreams. Absolutely love that shit, dude. I second that. And of course, Can I Play with Madness is a great song. You have, of course, the title track, Seventh Son of the Seventh Son, The Evil That Men Do. And I love when they were doing the 8-song thing. I thought that was a awesome thing because this one was a bit more, obviously, more of an ambitious album, but their stage shows for this album were huge too. I love the stage show that they put on for Seventh Son. Like, what an incredible set. And when I saw them on the Somewhere Back in Time tour in 2012, where Alice Cooper is the opener, they did 2 or 3 songs from this album, and that was cool because when they do songs from this album live, they want to make sure that they actually have like the people to actually do the synths rather than just use backing tracks. Because obviously, you know, in order to not do it, you gotta pay an extra person to do the stuff and play it live. So I respect the hell out of Maiden for doing that. And then, of course, you know, then they got a little overly ambitious a few albums later. After that, this is the tease. You can start to see them get like this is the beginning of their overly ambitiousness.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Like, this is this is where the cracks start showing a little bit. As Razor Fist so eloquently put it, 7th chorus repeat of a 7th chorus repeat. That is where this starts showing up for them. And a little bit of their longer, more self-indulgent tracks start showing up.
I haven't seen that started in Somewhere in Time, actually.
Yeah, but it's really evident here. And don't get me wrong, I still really, really dig this album, but it is, you know, where the warning signs start appearing. And it's, in a way, I came in at the exact wrong point in Maiden's history because Brave New World was the last really good album they ever did.
Yeah, and that was the last one. Derek Riggs had art on there before he had his falling out with Maiden. Yes. Man. Any thoughts on Seventh Son Imperatus, or shall we transition?
This was, in my opinion, actually a really good album from them when this came out. Because I got into Maiden via Killers.
Okay. Oh, Diano. Nice.
And hearing everything leading up to this was definitely a marked change from what they were doing up until this point. And this, at the time anyways, I liked this album better than what came right before it, which was Somewhere in Time.
Yes, it was a better album than Somewhere in Time.
I actually dig Somewhere in Time for what it was, especially the high points. Like songs like Wasted Years are just among the best tracks Maiden's ever done. But yeah, I think as an album, this one's probably consistently better. So I think Somewhere in Time spikes higher, but this one's probably more consistent.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So overall, this as a package is a better album, but the highs that are in Somewhere in Time are better highs.
Yeah.
You know what? I actually get that. That makes a whole lot of sense. Anything else in Imperatus?
I mean, then what we had coming after this. I mean, this was a really bad period of Maiden up until Brave New World.
We don't talk about that. It's just that dark corner of the room that we just don't look over.
No Prayer for the Dying was awful. What was the one right before?
About the only good song that came out of that period was Fear of the Dark.
Yeah.
I like Fear of the Dark. There's a few songs I feel like are start to get too long, but it's not like where it's some of the albums that are currently nowadays where they start with the soft acoustic intro and with the soft acoustic part, which seems to be like par for the course nowadays.
Yeah, that was like the thing that no one liked, and unfortunately, it's the one thing that they really latched onto.
Like, it's become like a fetish nowadays.
Like the new ones in YouTube, they won't stop doing it. Like every track has like a 2-minute acoustic intro that leads into the freaking song. It's just like, no, why? Stop. It's the one thing no one wanted you to do.
You know, I would have been cool with it for a song or two.
Yeah, like I feel like the new Saxon record. That's how they started off, but it leads into the album, and bang, now we're into it.
That new Saxon album's kick ass, by the way.
It really is. That's gonna be another review I do in the near future. I'm already doing notes on that.
Nice. No, that I was just listening this morning. And Eldritch Lord Hasser says, I like Seven Sons. Says, hey, we do too. We all obviously have our different rankings, but no, it's nice and entertaining. But this is gonna be a fun one because obviously this band brings about controversy by default. I'll lead off with my personal opinion. I like this album. I can see why there are a lot of good reasons. Obviously, being the bass being one of the reasons people have issues with it. You know, because there's no bass tone whatsoever. There's not. But I love a lot of the songs on here. I really do. Like Dyer's Eve is a great closer. I think that's a hell of an excellent closer. And people, a lot of the normals will latch on to one because that was a single and that was the video. But to me, there's so much. That's the least of this album. I like Eye of the Beholder. That had a good groove going on. Eye of the Beholder. Obviously, Blackened is a great opener. I enjoy this album, and this is like where it stopped for me, because once I was not in on Black Album Beyond, I was like, all right, it's time for me to get off the train now. I'm still drunk, but I'm still coherent drunk. It's time to get off the train before I start to get hammered. So I got off while still somewhat functional, and I enjoy this album. And I like to say, I've had many people, like some people I know, they cut off their point at Master or even Ride the Light. I had a neighbor when I lived in Chicago. His cutoff line was Ride the Lightning. He just was Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning. And for me, I'm Injustice. So any of you guys want to, just one of you guys go ahead, object or agree, whatever. I want to hear what you guys want to say.
No, I agree. And this is the first album I ever bought with my own money.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely adore this record.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually heard a version on YouTube somewhere. If I can find it, I'll link it.
Mm-hmm.
That has the bass track restored.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if they had released that with the proper bass track behind it, this would be their best album by far.
My favorite one personally is Kill 'Em All, but carry on.
Oh, Kill 'Em All is a great album, but I think this one would top it in terms of that aggression with the proper bass track behind
really?
it. Oh, yeah.
Like no biting words, man.
It really punches up tracks like Blackened or fucking Independence Limited and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
My favorite track on this record is actually an instrumental, To Live Is To Die.
Ooh, no, it's a good instrumental. Okay, I can go with that.
That epic breakdown in the middle and just leading into that solo is just fucking awesome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But this record as a whole, like, it's like you say, it is their last truly great album. I dig the Black Album for what it is, which is Metallica trying something new. I don't think it's as good as the other stuff, and I'm really sad that that's the way they went with it.
Bob Rock is evil in my eyes.
Yeah,
Rocky sure don't.
But that's one of those, like, as an experiment with like more like the hard rock side of the house. I appreciate what it is. Unfortunately, they saw that and then ran with it and just like, no, come back. We have cookies.
Oh my God.
What's even funnier about that is they decided to start going more mainstream, like right before metal had a resurgence.
Well, they went mainstream, and I don't, for the life of me, I can't understand why, because they were the biggest band on goddamn Earth in 1989 as a thrash metal band. And they're like, oh yeah, we need a bigger audience. How? It's like everyone who listens to metal listens to you. People who don't listen to metal listen to you.
Yeah, no, they had normies and they had metalheads. They really did.
Their first music video came off this album.
Yep. One, because I remember James said that some kids spat on me, which I will. This is the one thing I'll defend Metallica on. The whole you sold out because you made a music video, I thought was very petty. I'm like, dude, if you're gonna get mad for Metallica, get mad at them for making the Black Album Beyond. Don't get mad at them because they made a fucking music video.
And they were hardly the first metal band to make a freaking music video.
The first.
I mean, Priest had already done a couple at that point. Actually, more than a couple.
Maiden had done a few.
Yeah.
Judas Priest put out fucking Turbo, which I don't hate Turbo, by the way, but that's far more mainstream.
I have my issues with it, but it's still a damn good record. And in fact, some of the tracks on the album are still on my playlist for Priest, like Private Property.
Yeah.
It may be kind of cheesy, but I love that fucking guitar riff.
And we got a new subscriber here with the Wabbit. Well, thank you, Wabbit. It is not Wabbit season here. It's duck season. It's duck season over here, so you'll be okay. And thank you for your subscription. And Pat S here says, my buddy, big brother, traced that pick and bootleg on some Ash Gray t-shirt. Sold them for $10. Dude, make that Metallica money. I'll say it. Go make that money, man.
Hey, they certainly made theirs, so why can't we?
Oh man, no, dude. So Imperius, before we transition, do you have anything you want to add to this album?
I remember when this album came out, I was in 7th grade and I was so stoked and hyped for this album to come out because I was just, like I said, just starting to get into more and more and more. And at the time, Metallica and Iron Maiden were like the two bands I listened to like the most. So this coming out was, I was actually paying attention for an album to come out. I wasn't listening to albums that had already come out.
Cool. And what would be your favorite song or songs, and maybe a least favorite? Let's be honest here, man. Let's keep it real. No need to chill here.
I was always a big fan of Frayed Ends of Sanity.
All right, I can get with that.
That main riff is pretty ridiculous. I like
that
quite a bit.
Eye of the Beholder was also I was also a fan of.
Okay, dude, Eye of the Beholder. So that's not even like anywhere near the fastest song on, but obviously it's not a ballad like one either. But it's just got such a nice, thick, groovy riff on that one. So it's got some speed, but not as much as like Blacken. But God, Eye of the Beholder's God, it's so catchy too. I love it. So, all right, well, we will segue into our next one. And at this point in time, this band obviously was also from the Bay Area as well. And they had already put out an awesome stellar album called The Legacy. But then they moved on to their sophomore not slump titled The New Order. And a band that happens to be from the modern age happened to rip off one of their songs as well. You may have heard that band, Lamb of God. They wrote a song called Lay to Rest, and they ripped off the song Into the Pit. So when you listen to Lay to Rest, listen to the opening Lay to Rest, and then listen to the opening of Into the Pit. And I did hear Mark from Lamb of God say that was the biggest, most honest accident ever, because obviously Into the Pit is a Eric Peterson song. It's an Eric Peterson song, first and foremost, because I think Alex Skolnick played on one of their albums, but it's an Eric Peterson song. And Chuck Billy at the time was basically a Diet Hetfield on vocals, but God, was Skolnick such a sick shredder.
But even at this time, Chuck Billy had a distinct sound to his voice.
He did. He did. He really did. So I got into this one after seeing them live. I had bought what was at the time for me, The Formation of Damnation, which was the first album with the classic lineup back together. I bought that album, and yeah, it was. And then there was, and I'm like, oh, I bought a new one, and I'll buy an old one. And I bought this one, The New Order, because I remember Into the Pit stood out. And then, of course, Disciples of the Watch. I was like, that's a killer song. And I've always loved this cover here. Nice blue, classic-looking cover. It's just such a great cover. And Chuck Billy's performance on this album. You had Chuck Billy, you had Eric Peterson, Alex Skolnick, Greg Christian, and Louis Clemente on the drums. So this is before they had Big Gene Hoglan all over the skins. And Louis Clemente was solid. He wasn't the freaking god that's Hoglan, but he got the job done. And we got some memorable anthems out of this. Into the Pit, dude.
Into the Pit, Disciples of the Watch, The Preacher.
Such a good album, man. I was like, dude, I'm like thinking in my head, like, why was I sleeping on this album for so long? And I was listening to it obsessively, and I got to this one before I got into like The Legacy and Practice What You Preach, Souls of Black. So the new Order is definitely one of the best Testament albums, and I think I'll pass off to Imperius so he can talk about the New Order himself.
Yeah, this was the first album I heard from Testament. And it was probably around the time it came out, a little bit after. But like you said, it's got so many just classic tracks on it. Disciples of the Watch. That when they play that, every time I've seen them, the crowd just goes ape shit every time. And they put on one of the best live shows I've seen.
They're so heavy live.
Oh my God, they're loud, they're heavy. You feel it in your chest, but it's not uncomfortable. Even a good Aerosmith cover on here with Nobody's Fault.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, the Aerosmith cover. I forgot. I remember I'm like, that's an Aerosmith song? Oh, because
I forgot that Aerosmith did that one.
And then, Disciples of the Watch being based on Stephen King's Children of the Corn.
Nah, dude. I like how there's a song on here called The Preacher, yet the album after that was titled "Practice What You Preach." I'm
Yeah.
like,
I love when bands do that, and
I do too.
they kind of reference their own work going forward, and not even necessarily on the same album.
So okay, go on, Imperial, just carry on.
But yeah, I mean, this is, if you've never heard Testament before, this is actually, and you like thrash metal and you like your stuff to be a little bit more melodic, this is definitely like the era of Testament to jump into. Because after Souls of Black, they started experimenting with a little bit of death metal, with Low and Demonic. And then they had their resurgence starting with Formation of Damnation. But I've seen them a few times in the more recent years, and they have not lost a step at all. Good live, and they play such a varied mix of their stuff. It's like seeing Overkill live, because Overkill will just pull from all their albums and not just play like whatever their most recent shit is.
Yeah, I saw them at the Palladium in 2016. Last time they came through the area.
Oh wow, I know that venue.
You been there?
I know about it. It's got a lot of history of it. I'm aware of it. I've never been there, but
I live
a lot of
like
legendary shows there.
I live like
up in
45
Massachusetts.
minutes. Yep, I live like 45
okay,
minutes.
Yeah,
there,
I've heard of it. I've never been up there though.
I was actually there to see Sabaton because they were headlining.
Okay,
and then I stayed for the whole. I was there for the whole show, and I found out about 3 or 4 different bands that I really, really dig from that. And Testament was one of them. I'd like heard of them, but I'd never really paid attention. And then I saw them live, and like Imperatus is saying, they put on a hell of a show. And I really started digging into them. And I think this was the album I started with, because I think my favorite was The Preacher. And
The Preacher!
Even the most recent, not most recent, but they released a few years back, it was a compilation of a lot of older tracks. It was both Chuck Billy and Sousa from Exodus, who was also in Testament back in the day, going back and forth on songs, and they like remastered some of it. And that version of The Preacher, that guitar riff is so heavy.
I'll have to look that up.
So catchy. What was
that
called?
I don't know. You're gonna tell me.
That's what I'm looking up now. This is thinking out loud.
It's okay, man. Well, while you're thinking, why don't you? So you're telling me you with you and the New Order.
Honestly, like this is the album that I really started listening to, because they played a lot of stuff from this album on the tour that I saw, and I really like, it was this and Practice What You Preach are probably my my 2 Testament albums that I started with. Okay, and probably 2 of their best.
Oh, we got a Practice fan. I actually like Practice. I know there's been some blowback towards that, minor blowback.
The only criticism I have of this period of them as a band is, like we said at the beginning, they do sound a little too similar to Metallica to stand out on their own. Like, fans will get it, but like if you're just listening to the radio, I wouldn't necessarily count on a normie being able to pick out Testament from Metallica.
Yeah, I mean, and I think they're well aware at one point in time they probably were called a poor man's Testament. They definitely probably were called that many times, but Chuck Billy's voice age has only done favors for that man. And he survived cancer on top of it all. Holy shit. A man who beats cancer, comes back and plays live. Chuck Billy is a freaking legend.
And the album I was referring to is called First Strike, Still Deadly.
Oh, yes.
I have not heard that one. I'll have to give it a shot.
Yeah, they did a good job with that. Like the songs that were already heavy and had punch to begin with have even more so now.
All right. Well, we're going to segue into this one. This is one of my favorite thrash albums ever. Like in the history of ever. They had a super sick guitar player. His name is Dave Carlo. He's the songwriter. He had his brother Adam playing bass on this. Rob Mills was the drummer, and he had Stace McLaren on the vocals. And they hail from Canada. Razor Violent Restitution is such a insanely. This album, it takes a freaking giant plank of wood and just beats you over the face with it, and it doesn't stop. From the minute you hear that very piercing scream in the beginning at the martial arts, and it goes right into the hypertension, dude, this thing, oh my god. I remember when I heard this, when I first hear this was probably around 10 years ago. And I remember this is when I had Facebook. Trevor from the Black Dahlia Murder is very vocal about, championing lesser known underground bands, whether it's death metal, thrash, traditional heavy metal, black metal, whatever. And he posted favorite Razor album. And I'm thinking, okay, let's see what's up here. And I remember thinking, holy crap, because at this point I knew who Slayer were, I knew who Creator were, I knew who Exodus were, I knew Destruction, Sodom, Tankard. But hearing Razor was just on another level. And them being Canadian guys just up north of me, I'm just like, bro. I remember I had nights where I got drunk so many times to this album. I would just, chant the lyrics, so I'll only say it once, and Below the Belt. And I had smashed quite a few holes in the wall, Kyle style, to this album. I have. I found myself passed on Tupperware box bins the next morning with this record still playing. And it's 8 a.m. I have some emotional attachment to this memory, and I was lucky to catch Razor live at Maryland Death Fest in Baltimore in 2015. And Sodom was supposed to be on there as well, and Razor was supposed to be right before it, but Sodom dropped out the week of the festival. And I remember so many people were pissed, and rightfully so. So they weren't able to cross over from Germany into the States. But I'm just like, okay, that sucks. But as long as Razor makes it, I will be happy. And dude, I was all over that pit for Razor. I did not stop. And of course, they have many other great albums like Shotgun Justice, but Violent Restitution, this is the be all, end all. And I guess maybe, do you guys have any thoughts on Razor?
I'm not overtly familiar with them.
This album is pretty much the only one I am familiar with from them.
Oh, well, then talk about this album then.
And Hypertension is a really, really good descriptor for this entire album. It'll raise your blood pressure. All right?
That's so accurate.
And like you say, it's I equate it to something like Painkiller, where pretty much from that opening track, it just does not let off the gas for the entire freaking album. And you know what? I gotta say, it's 40 minutes of freaking great music. You can't really go wrong with this record.
No, not at all, man. It's a freaking seriously, it doesn't I think at best it slows down for a few seconds. At best, a few seconds.
Yeah, and there's brief periods where it goes to a mid tempo, and that's about it. There's no real slow track on here. You'll have albums like that, Bad Magic by Motorhead, like I just reviewed, and it starts out fast and out of control, and then it kind of slows down towards the midpoint, and they kind of do some more melodic and some more hard rock stuff. But this is just straight up auditory fucking assault from minute one.
Yeah, no, and I'm hoping that Dave Carlo could, because I'm not sure if you saw his stream recently with Razor Fist and the Metal Voice, and Carlo is hoping to get at least one Razor album out before they call it quits. So
that would be awesome, because they haven't come out with something in quite a while.
Dude, what? Cam Cranes? I'm from Baltimore. I saw that show. Dude, holy crap. What are the freaking odds? And Mondo Bizarro, love that chainsaw work, dude. You love that chainsaw work? Check out that album, man. I swear a lot of swears for that album. And trust me, I will swear a lot of vulgarities for that one. And this is now another legendary one, and for many people, the essential Queensryche album because of a very, very certain vocalist named Jeff Tate. I dig this album. I wouldn't say it's what is one of my all-timer albums, but obviously it's a freaking fantastic album. I still enjoy it. I still go back to it every now and then and listen to it, I guess, but probably my take on it would be a bit more normie based. Pope, you want to share some thoughts on Mindcrime?
I was actually just listening to this before the show. It's a fantastic record. Probably Queensryche's I wouldn't say their best album. Well, actually, it's probably their best album overall. With other albums having my favorite songs on there, like "Take Hold of the Flame" and shit like that. But this, I think, it's a great record, and it's put together well too. Like, I love how the tracks all flow into a one coherent message. I miss that about albums from the 70s and 80s, is that, you know, it was coming out on vinyl, so you had to make the tracks all fit together in a way that sounded good sequentially. Whereas nowadays, a lot of artists, especially in like the pop music crap, will just basically dump 12, 13 songs together and then release it on Spotify and call it an album.
No.
Whereas like these albums tell a story. Like, that's what I love about King Diamond, is it's a horror novel told in 40 minutes.
Killer. I once again, I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. It is a freaking fantastic album. Imperius, did you want to add anything about Queensryche? Any Queensryche story?
Nothing
Whatever.
Really big story wise, but this was such a good album. And, you know, it was a concept album that wasn't pretentious. It told its story without going too crazy with it, and had a couple, you know, some really decent tracks on it. Like Pope was saying, it's not their best. I prefer their first album.
Okay. Oh, okay.
But this actually definitely had some good tracks on it.
And I should mention, I'm actually going to be seeing these guys in April, opening for Judas Priest.
Oh, with Todd Latour on the front.
Yeah, I was actually supposed to be going to see it the last 2 times they were supposed to come, but one got canceled because of the coof, and then Richie Faulkner had his incident. So they've pushed it back to April now. The good news is, instead of having to go down to Foxwoods, which is 3 hours to see it, they're playing at the Tsongas Arena, which is 10 minutes from my house. So
nice. Well, that works out.
So I guess we'll see how good Queensryche still is. I haven't heard any of their newer stuff, so I guess
it's actually not bad. I'll tell you that one. Obviously, I'm looking forward to hearing what your thoughts are, but it's actually not bad. Now, here's one that doesn't get enough recognition on my end of things. If you guys are familiar,
not particularly. No,
dude. I am not familiar with Riot. They're that band I keep meaning to get to, but I always have other stuff going on.
Dude, this album is kick ass. Like, it hits the ground running with a 1-2 punch with Thundersteel and Fight or Fall. You know, it's got a mixture of punch you in the nose with some rockin' ballady type of parts. But dude, it's the 1-2 punch of Thundersteel and Fight or Fall. And Tony Moore's vocals on this are absolutely fucking awesome. Like, seriously, it's one of my favorite 1-2 punches. Seriously, like, it's just like, holy crap, that is how you get an album going. And then, of course, you got a glorious piece of artwork right here. Glorious piece. And I think Bobby Jarzabek, who's one of those like drum prodigies. He did the skins on this album, and I couldn't stress this album enough to people to look this album up. It was on CBS, and it's of course considered, I guess you could say it's considered maybe power metal or traditional metal or somewhere in the between. It's a little over like 40 something minutes, and it's 9 songs, and this album hits. Trust me, it's catchy, it's infectious. And once again, I'm going to stress that 1-2 punch of the openers. I can't recommend Riot enough. And Mondo here wants to intervene with Fire Down Under. Oh, okay. Fire Down Under. You're a Fire Down Under type of guy. Okay. No, hey, man. I can get with that. Totally get it. That's freaking Fire from Down Under, man. So
yeah, I'll have to check this out and see that, because there's so much, especially from this era, that you can't even listen to it all. It's all like, there's just so much of it, you can't possibly get to it all. Which is great, because it means we'll always have something new to listen to.
Oh, we always will indeed. So the next one is going to be something, well, I guess we could say fairly obvious. And for me, I was a very, very late bloomer on this particular album. So I had known about Manowar for a long time. I just, for some reason, didn't listen to it. Like, even though I knew, for some reason, didn't get to it. But then until my buddy, Manowar 665, Neighbor of the Beast, literally got me as a gift. the Kings of Metal album. Wow, I love Kings of Metal. It's such a good album. It's very catchy, and it feels very freedom-ish too. When you're finding it, just makes you just like want to stand up and cheer and just go. It makes you feel defiant listening to this album. And I feel like Heart of Steel is a great song. I probably Kingdom Come is one of my favorite songs on here, and this was recorded obviously in Chicago.
Nice.
So that's a cool thing to say. And to think at one point in time, Atlantic was putting out albums like this. You wouldn't know it now, but at the time, Atlantic was
on
all over.
Atlantic.
Yeah, and obviously Pantera's on there, and it's just crazy to think, wow, Atlantic was all over these bands, and now it's like nothing. But it's cool that they had that. So any thoughts on Manowar, guys?
This is the only album I'm familiar with. I'm not a huge Manowar fan.
Okay, I'm a big fan of this period from Manowar, especially this album with Hail and Kill, Kings of Metal, just glorious tracks. But yeah, Kingdom Come's a great one on this one. This is probably their best album overall. But this, you can't really go wrong with this period of Manowar. It's just over the top. And the thing I've always loved about Manowar is they don't take themselves too seriously. Like they don't, they know exactly what they are, is over the top, ridiculous power metal, and they just run with it. And they're not afraid of it.
Nope, they're shameless about it. And dude, they're such toxic men on stage too, which is absolutely freaking awesome.
And that's exactly as it should be.
And Cam here's got a great cut. Says, hell yeah, great album. People slept on it, but it is their best. And I'll admit, I was one of those people. I was complicit until Manowar 665 just said, fucking listen to us. And
never forget, other bands play. Manowar kills.
And then a Sawatiro, how's it going? By says, but they are mind-meltingly loud. That sounds like you have seen them live from experience. I still have not seen them, so
well, they're famous as the world's loudest band. They took Motorhead's spot.
They took, even though they're everything louder than everything else.
Well, pretty much until this period, Motorhead had the title, and then I think Manowar hit 132 decibels. So they took the crown, and I don't know that Motorhead swapped ever since. But either way, you're not going to be hearing anything for a couple of days, and that's probably the best way to get hearing damage I've ever heard.
Dude, that's great. All right, so we'll talk about Blood, Fire, and Death with. Obviously, this is a period of time where things were getting a bit weirder for Bathory here. And I'll admit, there's still, obviously, you're still very recognizable elements of Bathory in this album. They're still very recognizable, but you can definitely tell they're starting to look into some other things that would become a lot more transparent later on in this album. So I'm still more of the super earliest of Bathory, but still a solid album nonetheless. It looks like Pope Metallicus is just ready to talk about Blood, Fire, Death. So have the floor, sir.
Yeah, man. This is probably the last of the albums I can honestly say I just dig as a whole piece. Because this is their last real black metal album. And then they went more into the Viking metal stuff, which I dig, but this is also where they started that one riff to rule them all syndrome of like half the tracks on this album have that same riff that then half of their Viking metal stuff would have going on. And don't get me wrong, it's a great riff the first 3 times you hear it. And then after...
Yeah, you don't want a whole album of it.
Yeah, well, and they had it on the previous album too, but only on one track. So it was just kind of like, oh, okay, so they're going back to that. It's like, oh, they're going back to that again. But no, there are some real standouts on this album. Fine Day to Die is pretty good. Blood, Fire, Death itself is just monstrous. And overall, I think it's not Bathory's best album by far. That would be the first 2. But this is definitely a solid record. And I think for black metal fans that are just getting into like the first gen stuff, this is something that's going to be pretty familiar to him.
All right, cool, awesome. You heard the man. Imperius, you had anything you want to add to Bathory?
Like Pope was saying, this was definitely the beginning of their shift over into Viking metal territory.
Yep. We're all in the grades.
I mean, I'm a fan of Viking metal myself, so it doesn't really bother me too much. But this one also still kept their edge.
Mm-hmm.
Like A Fine Day to Die is such an epic song.
Yeah,
And you know that, and Pace Till Death. I mean, is it Sacrifice? No. Is it Born for Burning? No. But what else really is? You know,
that's fair.
Really good record. If you want to get into Bathory, and I would actually start here and go backwards, because this one actually
I can see that.
It actually has a decent production. His vocals really haven't really changed that much over the course of these albums.
Interestingly enough, Korthon's vocals really have not.
But like I said, it's a decent enough production, which especially some real early black metal really
well,
really
I mean,
suffers from.
Like that was kind of the point of the first wave black metal bands, though, is they were trying to get away from that.
Oh, I agree.
Away from that production sound. So, you know, in a way, it's supposed to sound like it was recorded on an answering machine inside of a trash
right
can.
And some bands are great for that, you know. Dark Throne especially, I'll bring them up again. Or there's a couple other bands I can't think of.
I mean, my favorite of that whole period is Venom. And they were an influence on Bathory, regardless of how much Korthon always denied.
Oh God, you know they were. I don't know why. I don't know why Korthon kept lying about that. It's just like, bro, everyone knows they influenced everyone else too. No one cares.
Yeah, I think all those bands in that era, Hellhammer and Celtic Frost, and
dude, even Metallica.
Yeah,
like especially like tracks like
with it.
Especially tracks like Hit the Lights. You can definitely hear the early Venom influence in there. But it's just one of those guys. It's like, dude, everyone knows, no one cares. Just
suck it up, admit it, and move on.
Yeah, right. It's like it's one of those things. Like until you admit it, we're never going to stop talking about it.
It's kind of like the late '90s when people were, you know, going on about the Norse black metal scene. It's like, yeah, some of these guys just need to suck it up, admit what they did was stupid in some cases or whatever, and move on. Because if you know, and some bands have tried and they've just done it in really stupid ways. Again, Dark Throne. It's like, oh, well, we just distanced ourselves from the scene. You distance yourself from the metal scene as a whole. What you're putting out now is just unintelligible.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like, stop letting Fenris get drunk and sing.
All right. This is another great one. And this is obviously, once again, with the metal area, in the thrash scene in particular. Forbidden is definitely a underrated. I mean, maybe even underrated is not fair, because obviously there's still far many more thrash bands are not as well known, but they're obviously nowhere as big even as an Exodus or even a Razor. But Forbidden had a short-lived run, and they stopped in the 90s, and they got back together in the like 2010s-ish eras very briefly, and they put out one album, they called it Quits. But I love Forbidden Evil. When I first heard Russ Anderson's pipes and Chalice of Blood, oh my God, sorry, that was terrible. But Chalice of Blood's a kick-ass opener. Oh my God. Of course, the song Forbidden Evil they were originally named Forbidden Evil. So, and this is one of those albums that should have had more recognition. And I love this cover. It makes for great t-shirts. Makes for absolutely awesome t-shirts that you just look and they're like, dude, I actually ran into a guy at a gas station a few months ago, and I'm like, bro, you're wearing that shirt at a show. There's no way I'm not going to talk to him. Before you know, we were talking for like 20 minutes. It's one of those things, like, when you know, like, you don't just wire that shirt on accident and point out. It's not like, I guess you could say, like, any normie will wear like a Def Leppard shirt, which I like early Def Leppard, but a lot of people wear it but not be aware of any music. You don't wear a Forbidden Evil shirt on accident.
No. I can think of a bunch of other bands that are the same way.
Oh yeah. So any thoughts on Forbidden, Imperatus?
I got into them with the album after this.
Oh, Distorted and Twisted to Form?
Yeah. But you're right. They're definitely underrated for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But people who are, who know the scene, who've been around, definitely at least acknowledge more than their existence. Most people will say they're pretty underrated.
We even had Paul Bowsteph on the drums too, and this is before he replaced Lombardo and Slayer too, and obviously he did the formation of Damnation with Testament, and he obviously rejoined Slayer before they called it a day. So, and Bowsteph he's pretty much a session drummer, but this is where he started getting his chops, I guess you could say, more notice on a national level per se. And he's always, obviously, because he's the guy who replaced Lombardo, he's always gonna be remembered for that. But if you actually listen to the guy on his own merits, he is a solid drummer.
Good drummer, cool dude. I met him on that Testament tour.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, he was just hanging out in the venue.
Nice.
Pope might be familiar with the place I went to a lot of shows at. This place in New York called The Chance.
I am not familiar with New York at all. I'm up in Massachusetts, so I stick up in my little neck of the woods.
My neck of the woods is about 4 hours, give or take, from Boston.
Okay, yeah, I'm about half an hour north of the city. So
yeah, but The Chance is known kind of like the Palladium is in the well, at least it was back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've heard of it. I just don't know where it is.
Ooh. Well, I'll tell you what, Pope, if you're not familiar with Forbidden, it sounds like you're not.
No, I am not. I will have to check that out.
You will enjoy this album. And their reunion album that they put out was not bad. It wasn't like, essential, but it's a good, solid album. It's a good, solid album. And it's one that definitely bears worth mentioning. But then there's one that bears equal mentioning, Eternal Nightmare, which, bear with me here. Sorry, guys. Go ahead and keep the conversation going for a minute. I got to figure this out.
But yeah, there's so many great underground bands from this period that like either never went anywhere or got screwed by their record label. The best example of that being Grim Reaper. Where they were a fantastic little band and they came out with some really great stuff, and then they fell out with their record label and signed with a new one, only to find out that their old label owned the rights to the name Grim Reaper, so they couldn't reform. So it's just kind of like
that whole spiel with Grim Reaper is a bunch of BS, man. Oh my god,
they got shafted, dude.
They got screwed on that shit. That's such a bunch of bullshit. But
unfortunately, they're hardly alone in that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's the funny part. That was normal back then. That was par for the cause for labels to screw bands like crazy. Like Exodus had put out, they recorded Bonded by Blood, and it wasn't released until like at least a year after it was recorded, at the least. And that was by that point in time, a lot of the thrash metal bands were already exploding and getting around in the markets and making a name for itself. So Exodus was viewed as a light player, even though they were one of the earliest players in it. In some ways, one of the architects of the scene, because obviously Kirk Hammett was originally one of the original members, and obviously he never played on Bonded by Blood, but just goes to show you, like, they're just as prominent as the first wave too. They're not second wave, because a lot of people affiliate them with the Death Angels of the world and the Testaments and the Forbiddens.
If you look at like the late 80s, early 90s, the record labels basically created the grunge movement so they wouldn't have to pay a lot of these top tier either glam or heavy metal bands.
That was definitely part of it.
See you in hell.
Dude, Grim Reaper's entire catalog is fantastic. Like they had no right being as unknown as they were. So I think a lot of it was they started out underground and the record label just really wanted to keep them under wraps for whatever reason. And they really just a lot of, and unfortunately that's a common theme with a lot of bands from the late 80s is they just got buried.
It's so tragic. Seriously, like, and that once again, as you said, they took all these grunge bands so they didn't have to
pay big contracts, because if you notice, like Pantera's first 3 albums were all like kind of more like the power metal side of the house, and they were about to get paid. They were, I think, one of the few that like really saw that coming and transitioned into the more thrash and grunge style. ahead of time, and that turned into Cowboys from Hell.
Yeah, and then
what a record!
Yeah, no, and that was the beginning also of the change in the 90s. And man, the 90s, that's when, obviously mentioning Testament from earlier, when they're starting to get weirder with putting out stuff like Low. They're like, hey, what's going on here? Like,
and actually, Pantera's my favorite Pantera album actually came out '88 too. So
power metal, oh yes, yeah. we will talk power metal. I think right after this one. So nice. Obviously, this is Eternal Nightmare. From Violence. And Violence, for a lot of people, for a more historical reference, a lot of people have heard of a controversial figure named Rob Flynn, who was in Machine Head. Before he was in Machine Head, he was in Violence with Phil Demmel and their singer Sean Killian. And this was a 7-track album, and it's got I love the lyrical content, and it's super catchy. I probably have to say Kill on Command, the last song, is my favorite song on the album. I would highly stress picking this piece up. And this was, once again, they're more considered second wave as well of thrash, along with the Death Angels and the Testaments of the world. They're definitely of the second wave type. Maybe even third wave, but then they were another Bay Area band. And Sean Killian has some pipes to it, and he still sounds good to this day. And he's another man who beat cancer recently as well. So shout out to Sean Killian.
A lot of singers getting cancer, which is weird. Like, I know Dave from Megadeth just had it. Bruce just got over it from Iron Maiden. Apparently Rob Halford had a cancer scare a little while ago and got through that. So
isn't that weird how that happens?
They're all getting throat cancer too, which is weird.
Yeah,
it's even the guys who never smoked.
Yeah. Oh, dude, Ronnie James Dio. That man was a very clean guy, and yet he passed away at such a early age, and it's so tragic that happened. Like, that man did not need to go in jail, especially when his last album, that was a Sabbath album, by the way. It's not Heaven and Hell. It's a fucking Black Sabbath album.
Heaven and Hell is Black Sabbath, and Sharon Osbourne.
Oh, I know.
It can go eat a dick.
Yeah, she can eat a dick. It was a Black Sabbath album through and through. And it was actually good. I remember enjoying it. And I was like, bro, it had some heavy Iommi riffage going on.
Honestly, Black Sabbath themselves, their last album I thoroughly enjoyed as well. 13.
Mm-hmm. 13, yep. 13 was good. It was like a greatest hits amalgamation of songs that they haven't released. That's how I describe 13. It was great. It was a great, because obviously not a greatest hit, but it was just like you can hear different.
It was awesome to hear the original lineup back together again and recording.
Mm-hmm. Having Geezer, Tony, Ozzy. Oh, yeah. No, totally. So this one is interesting. So when this first released, it was called Illusions, but then they reissued it not much later and retitled it Chemical Exposure. But I like to go by its original cover entitled Illusions. This is thrash metal band Sadus. And Sadus, like Razor before them, like Demolition Hammer before them, they are very nasty, fast, and brutal. This is
and technical.
And it gets very technical. And they had a legendary bass player on here who would become very prominent in Testament, named Steve DiGiorgio. And the vocals on this thing are absolutely, from Darren, his vocals are just straight nasty. He's got like that raspy sound to him. And dude, it's just nonstop. I'm gonna have to go probably for my favorite song is the very straightforward And Then You Die. That is my song on this album. I remember when I first saw it, I'm like, bro, this shit beat me in the head. Like, and this is when I was trying to look for stuff that was as fast, if not faster, than Slayer. I was going beyond Creator, Sodom, Destruction, Tankard, but Sadus just knocked me on my feet. And it was just like I got back up and just got hit back down on the ground again. And this was the breathing ground for DiGiorgio, because obviously before he moved on to Testament, he was also on Death. He did the Individual Thought Patterns album, but Stevie D has such a great bass tone on this album. And this is when you start to see bass players starting to shine and be prominent on albums. And DiGiorgio was one of those guys, like Alex Webster, leading the cause for bass on metal. So I highly recommend Sadus for the chat, especially if you want an extra added kick to the gut or to the dick of thrash. you want Sadus in your life. SADUS.
It's
And
a-
it's probably
out of the-
Tidal Chemical Exposure on YouTube because a lot of them are doing it by the more recent title change. And why that title change happened was super unnecessary. And Puritas, go ahead and speak.
Sadus, yeah, another underrated band, freaking killer. I didn't really get into this album. I got into the one, I think it was like the one after it, Twisted into Form.
Oh, yes, he did. No, well,
Oh no, I'm sorry, Swallowed in Black was the next
yeah,
one.
Swallowed in Black. That's a good album too. But go on,
Yeah,
go on about Sadus.
Real early thrash death metal hybrid, but very technical, you know, just good stuff. I mean, this is also like 88 to me in some ways definitely feels like the beginning of a lot of experimentation with metal. It didn't really quite start happening yet, and I don't mean like the shift to the 90s, but death metal was becoming more refined at this point.
Yeah,
it's pure chaos and noise.
Yeah, it's a proto death metal album. It's a prototype of it in a way. I can see what you're getting at. Go on.
You know, a lot of the stuff that came out in this era also led into the second wave of black metal, for sure. You know, Sadus, Battery, obviously. But yeah, Sadus, another, if you want something a little bit edgier, and I hate to use the term edgier, but something with a bit more of an edge, something that really kind of just punches you in the face. But if you know anything about music, you listen to it, you go, holy shit.
Yeah, that was that always makes me sad that they stole the word like edgy from us, because that used to be like how you describe a lot of thrash. Yeah, it's like that used to be like how you describe a lot of thrash and death metal was is it's got like that real hard edge to it. And now it's just like, oh, it's edgy like a fucking 16-year-old. It's like, oh god. Like now every time I hear that word, it's just like, oh no, why? No, stop.
Yeah, you know, sometimes guys, it really do be like that. It really do. But the next one is going to be what I consider a pretty good album, and I was actually a fan of the solo output from Mr. One, Ozzy Osbourne. This is the year he released No Rest for the Wicked, and this is honestly, I think, the only album I can dig that actually had Zakk Wylde on the guitar, because I feel like he started getting a little bit too overwhelming with his style later on. But I feel like this album, he was playing within his, I guess I'd say maybe he wasn't as comfortable, but I really enjoyed No Rest for the Wicked. And God, oh my God, I didn't know Bobby Daisley was on the album. Shit, I did not know that. And obviously Zakk was replacing the super underrated Jake E. Lee on the album. And Miracle Man is a great tune. I enjoyed me some Miracle Man. And of course, Breaking All the Rules. Pope, do you got anything to back on No Rest for the Wicked?
Honestly, like Breaking All the Rules is probably my favorite on this one. And this is the last Ozzy album I can really honestly say I enjoyed cover to cover.
Agreed.
After this, like there's some tracks in the Zakk Wylde era that are excellent. But really it just, like you say, he's kind of overwhelming a little bit, and it doesn't sound like Ozzy.
No,
it sounds more like Black Label Society, which
this
is
album
great in their own right. But
yeah, this is still purely Ozman. This album, this is still a good album.
Which is really funny considering Ozzy's never written anything in his life, and but he does have a specific sound to it.
No, he does. He's got that voice, and I'd say besides the Sabbath album, this is probably the last Ozzy album that I enjoy, where you would consider Ozzy album, Black Sabbath. Besides Black Sabbath 13, I thought No Rest for the Wicked was still a solid album, and I feel like this is probably my favorite playing of Zakk's on an Ozzy album. And once again, it's probably because he wasn't fully, all in on the process. He was just like, okay, just play guitar a little bit and don't show off too much. So he was definitely more reserved on this album.
Yeah, and I think later on, too, he was doing Black Label Society at that point as well. So I think the two sounds kind of blended together a little bit, which is not a bad thing necessarily, but I think they're two different bands, and I think Black Label was starting to bleed over into Ozzy a little too much. That, and it was the 90s where a lot of stuff was changing, and not in a great way for a lot of the older artists.
Yeah. And Isaj here has a good comment here. Says, my favorite Ozzy band, the live band, was Zach Trujillo and Borden. I did like that live band. I did, because Borden obviously came from Faith No More, and you had Trujillo, Infectious Groove, Suicidal Tendencies. I did dig that lineup. So I was into it. And so as far as the live shows goes, I can get with that lineup. So, and then Pat S is right. This is Ozzy's last time before he went, yeah, pop, yeah. I did dig Mama, I'm Coming Home. I can get why people didn't. I can get what people did, but I do dig that track. So this is the last pure Oz album for me. This is where I'm like, okay, guys, I'm still sober. I'm enjoying it, but the train is still functional, and I'm starting to see a sign of a train starting to get a little shaky. The rails are getting a little weird. Maybe you guys got to clean the rust off a bit, but this album is good. You know what? Fire in the Sky, man. Yeah, dude. Yes, Alex James, my man.
It's definitely not my favorite Ozzy album. That would probably be Bark at the Moon for me.
Ooh, see, I'm a Diary of a Madman guy, but still, No Rest for the Wicked's good. It's a solid album, and
I'd probably go Bark at the Moon or Ultimate Sin, but
okay, Ultimate Sin's good. Okay,
but yeah, this is probably the end of Ozzy's real dominance as a solo artist.
See, and we got another like for I Like No Rest, Killer, Amen Fate. What's up, Imperius? I realized I didn't have anything for you to say on it. Did you have any thoughts on opinions on it, or no?
When this came out, this is when I started kind of getting into Ozzy. So, whereas I like the album, like Pope was saying, it's definitely not my favorite. You know, like you said, like everybody was saying, you could see where it was going. It was like, well, something's up with the sound here. You know, it doesn't really quite sound like Ozzy. And then going forward from that, he went more mainstream, and Mama, I'm Coming Home, and all that stuff. And
that's something I really only understood once I started playing too, is how much of a difference production can make from one album to another. Even just like the level of reverb or one setting here or there can change the entire sound of a record.
I mean, case in point, you had the whole Swedish death metal scene, which was all based around one effects plug.
Yeah,
pedal, I should say.
All right. So, anything else you wanted to add, Imperius, or no?
No, not the best Ozzy album, but not a terrible one either. What we got after that is really when it started going bad.
Yeah, it sounds like we can at least all agree it's at least a solid album.
And my favorite album from him would probably either be Bark at the Moon or No Rest for the Wicked.
You Bark at the Moon, guys. You're killing me with your Barks
Blizzard of Oz.
All right, well, chat. This is gonna be our last album that we talk about, because unfortunately I gotta get over to Culture Casino's channel for the Sunday Culture Review. That's where I'll be headed, as I will be a guest on there. But before we wrap up, we're going to talk about before Pantera went full-on groove metal. They were more glam metal and to some extent power metal, and Phil Anselmo's vocals were more like Rob Halford per se than what his style became later on. And I remember, and I can actually thank Trevor from Black Dahlia Murder. He was my discovery into what I like to call glam Terra. And between this and I Am the Night, I remember just seeing Vinny and Dime and Rex and Phil. I'm like, dude, look at the hair on these guys. Like, I actually like these albums, and not just because it's now, I guess you could say, trendy to like them. But dude, I thought there was just some really rocking songs. The song Power Metal is a jam. The song Power Metal is a freaking jam. Down Below, dude, short and just freaking hits you. I'm like, dude, how did they not ignore these songs? Because there's so many cool songs on this one. And obviously that's because I obviously know they don't consider it an official album. But bro, can you imagine? Like, I think Phil wanted to do so many songs live, but I think Vinny didn't want to. I think it was Vinny who was like, no, we can't do it. Or maybe I got it the other way around.
I think Daryl was the one who wanted these things buried, and I can't for the life of me figure out why. This is some of his best work.
Yeah, he kills it.
And the weird part is you can't buy these records anymore. Not directly from the band anyway. And these are the only 3 albums that they actually own the rights to.
Fuck.
And
So,
I think the issue with them trying to bury it
I
was
think Daryl never liked these records. They never wanted them released, and after he died, that is now written in stone forever. They will never sell these records again.
well, like with when Cowboys from Hell came out, there glam metal was done by that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was a lot of let's bury this so people don't find out that we were like that was us, because that's not cool anymore.
Which is hilarious to me because they're actually wicked underrated records, all three of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm gonna agree with you, Nick. This one's my favorite, but I Am the Night's pretty goddamn good too.
Oh, dude, I Am the Night's a solid album. That still gets like a good 8 out of 10 for me with I Am the Night. But Power Metal's just this was one of those, they were in the right mindset, the right place, right time, and they freaking hit a grand slam.
And like you said, you can really see the Priest influence in this record, where it's just like, oh, okay, so Phil Anselmo can sing when he wants to.
Yeah, when he actually applies himself, he can do it. And I remember seeing him do DJing stuff even recently, and he when he chooses to do it, he can do it. He just doesn't. So
right, like that's almost more annoying. Like when you hear somebody that can do it, it's just like, yes, now why aren't you?
Yeah. Oh man, yeah, dude. It's so many mysteries about this and what could have been, what never was. But man, yeah, chat. Look up Glam Terra. It's great. It's amazing. Even
it's all over YouTube. Like you can find the whole album or individual songs on it, and it is well worth a listen.
And boy, I hate wrapping this up because this has been a very fun stream talking about these albums. I hope one day we can unite us three together and then talk another year.
I'm sure we will.
I'm sure before long we'll find another one.
I can't wait till we start just getting into genre talk. Like we start talking about black metal. I'll be in heaven.
That's a panel for that's a puff for another day. But all right, chat. Thank you for sticking around. Whether you stuck around for a few minutes or hung around the entire panel, for those who dropped in early, dropped in later, dropped in the middle, I thank you all. This is seriously awesome. Hopefully, we gave you some recommendations. I'll get you to say, hey, I gotta check that out. Hopefully, you were sold on what we presented to you guys, and I will let Pope Metallicus plug in what he has to say first. So, Pope, my friend, promote your channel and post in the private chat, and I'll post it on here.
Absolutely, man. My name is Pope Metallicus the First. I run a very, very, very small channel. I do a gaming stream every Thursday. I think currently I'm playing Warhammer 40k Space Marine, so we're going through with that. And every now and again, when I stop being lazy and actually record them, I do some album reviews. I think I have 2 up: Bad Magic by Motorhead and Infidel by Ambush. So if you can, go check those out, and hopefully I'll see you there.
Cool. Awesome. Hey, dude, thank you for coming on. I know obviously this is a last minute thing. I appreciate it. And I'm glad this worked out this way. This really was like,
right?
Everything fell into place. We've failed with planning, but the minute I'm like, hey, this is last minute, but can you do this? It worked out.
Right. That's the way she goes.
I'm like doing stuff by the seat of your pants.
Yep. All right. Well, once again, dude, thank you for coming on. And when the time comes, we will reunite again. Imperatus, plug away and talk about your channel, and also post your link in the private chat.
You had it the other night, but you don't have it today.
I don't, but it's okay.
My name's Imperatus. I just got my YouTube channel up and going. There's another. I only have one video up now. It's a conversation with Doc from Comics Aficionados and me and Nick talking about comics. I got a couple other videos in the works. I expect to see more of me on various streams and stuff going forward. Expect more metal talk, because that's something me and Nick have been talking about for a while now, and this is the first one, and it's only going to get better from here.
I agree wholeheartedly, man. Well, dude,
absolutely, man.
Thank you.
Maybe you Imperatus, you said you're a black metal guy. Maybe you and me can do some stuff on maybe review Bathory's first couple records.
Yeah. Okay.
Ooh, that's awesome. All right, guys. So Imperatus is right here, and Pope Metallicus is right here. Obviously, if you're in here, yes, in metal we trust indeed.
Absolutely.
Says check out Spite if you get a chance. You know what? I will. Thank you for that recommendation. And once again, chat, thank you. And look, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yes, the links are dropped right above you, Cam. I'm gonna head on over to Culture Casino's page. I'm gonna be on the Culture Review. Obviously, I yell at Park Cars on Monday nights at Comics Division. Toxic Tuesday this week. We are talking Major League, so that's gonna be a great classic to talk
Fantastic.
about. Comic Shop Talk as well is this Friday, and I've got a few funny videos coming out this week as well that are gonna make fun of things in the world, but with a more comical take on it with some voice impressions. I might do some Macho Man takes, so keep your eyes and ears open for them. And hopefully you guys all come over to the Culture Review. I'll see you all there. And may our paths cross again. Good. Have a good day. Have a good afternoon. Have a good evening. Wherever you are, this is good.